Also gonna record this as well.
Got almost like Astros.
Hello, everybody. My name is Quint866, and welcome back to a Mestress Audio Podcast. This time we're talking about Bleach. With me is the man, the myth, the legend.
Katashiki Otsutsuki also with a new mic, and like it's a bit of a cheaper mic, but it is a more involved mic.
Yeesh.
It's very fancy. It has a one of those weird pop filter things on it, and stands that go like all the way down. It's very interesting. But
Would you mind doing me a favor, actually, really quickly? I'm sorry to ask this of you, but
huh?
could you check this stream to make sure your audio is coming through? It's going to be a little hard because I'm the one who's recording, but just while you're at it, could you quickly check and make sure the audio is good?
Wait, hold on.
Oh, okay.
Do you have an issue with my audio?
No, no, I don't. I just want to make sure that's coming out fine on the stream because if I upload it, because I'm recording desktop audio, the audio will double over. So I actually kind of need you to check. Or like I could pull it up on my mobile phone as well. That might not be a bad idea, actually. Take a little look-sees. I just want to make sure it's not doing because I've had technical difficulties happen all the time. One of my Mario Party videos had my friend Matt having a robo voice because I had two audio layovers. So let's just take a little look-sees here.
Did this just start off of a conversation about setting up the stream?
No, no, no. It wasn't. I didn't get any of the Leafa or the other stuff we're talking about, Shield Hero stuff. I started literally when I said starting the stream, which is why I make a big announcement
No,
with
no,
that.
no, no, no. I'm talking
Huh?
about like we're setting up the my audio thing. Like
Oh yeah, yeah. That got in there. You talking about the new mic? Yeah, that got in there.
yeah, like uh yeah, that's the way to start off the stream.
Hey, hey. People probably, well, a few people that actually watch these might notice there's more clear audio on our end. Okay, so
You
we're
know
gonna be
what?
talking about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Let's make this a more chill one than usual since it's a stream.
Yeah, and I'm also probably gonna try and make this one a little bit shorter, so we're likely not gonna do an episode by episode review of Agent of the Shinigami because I want to keep
I'll
this
try to
timely.
remember what I can though.
Yeah, I mean, I'll wonder what I can do. I typed up little notes because I'm a little bit of a spoiler alert. One of these days, I am going to do a arc ranking video. I'll probably do one with you, and I'll probably do a separate one with just me on my own. Kind of, compare the two, see how it goes. But regardless, before we start the actual talk about Agent of the Shinigami itself, I just figured it might be nice to do just a little bit of a history lesson because, fun fact. Before this guy here, before I met him, I never watched Bleach. In fact, I only got into Bleach because you recommended I give it a shot. And you know what? I have no regrets. I can easily say that. I mean, okay, to be fair, I already have a big distaste for One Piece. And while I haven't finished Naruto Shippuden quite yet, I'm basically at the end anyways. And I am pretty safe to say I personally prefer Bleach the most of the big three from what I've seen.
Hmm.
And I mean, well, I think that segues us into the first arc, Agent of the Shinigami, or the substitute Soul Reaper arc, whatever the English folk want to talk about it. Basically, just the first 21 episodes. And, well,
20 actually.
huh?
It's actually 20.
Oh, well, I don't know the exact numbers. Sometimes people like that's kind of the funny thing about Bleach, because actually, now that I think about it, since I said arc, Bleach's arcs are actually kind of funny compared to like other traditional anime arcs. Like the Bleach arcs really aren't that self-contained as they transition into one another. Kind of like what it's kind of like. It's kind of like Inuyasha actually, where the
Mhm.
story really is linear and it's just this big grander adventure. The arcs are just parts of that grand adventure. Now, obviously, there are some
Yeah.
self-contained arcs like the fillers and whatnot. That being said, I was actually kind of intrigued how like the arcs for Bleach were different than what I was expecting of it.
You've also got like sub arcs, like past
Yeah,
being, kind of like a,
and then you
going
have
back
some
to
arcs that are
Shinjo.
divided into multiple parts, like Soul Society, or obviously the Arankar arc, which takes up like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
half
Because
of
you
the
have the info.
runtime.
Yeah, because the way they work is the reason why they label it on like the wikis and stuff as like sneak entry and like rescue is because like it's it's like you have the infiltration for each, and then you have the invasion part of it.
Yeah.
That's always
Heck, same thing
seems to
goes
be
for
the
Bounce,
case.
where you have Bounce and then the Assault on the Soul Society part of
Yeah,
Bounce. So yeah,
yeah,
like
it's
this
very
is a
much the
common thing
same.
for Bleach.
Yeah.
Well,
Um.
anyways, Agent of the Shinigami. Honestly, as far as first arcs go, a little bit of a personal note here. When I first went into this arc, I was setting low expectations. I know it might sound weird for me to say that, considering the fact that I'm usually the guy that likes to go in hoping for the best. However, because I knew Bleach is a very long series, even if it's the shortest of the big three, 300 episodes, 4 movies, and the still being made Thousand Year Blood War arc uh, is still a pretty meaty amount of episodes, all things considered. So
Mhm.
I obviously went in knowing that it would probably take time for things to get swinging.
Yeah.
That being said, though, I'm still pretty happy with how this first arc turned out. Like, even though in the moment when I first watched it, it kind of took me a bit of time to let it sink in, when I got to grips with it, I really liked what they were going for. Obviously, first things first, our main protagonist, Ichigo himself. And really, what is there to be said about him? Honestly, I don't even know where to start.
Mhm. Yeah, he's very a very unique protagonist, I think, in the sense also in the sense that he's not like here's the thing, there is progression to him, but that's not like the forefront of his development. It's more that he'll see an event, he you know, he's sees the event happen and he wants to act upon it,
Yeah,
and
he's a
that's what
very
makes him
reactive
kinda
character.
and like that's kind of what makes him really heroic is because like he does things like just not for any like big reason or anything. It's just kind of like if he sees an event and he thinks he has the slightest just feeling that they are in the wrong, well, that's
Yeah, they
he'll
really sort
act
of make
upon
him
that.
this punky guy, but he means really well. And actually, on the topic of that, something I really appreciate about Ichigo is that, okay, obviously Ichigo isn't like 100% powerful and wins all the time, but what I really like is how, at least going off of the start of the series, they don't necessarily portray him as an underdog. Now, of course, he is nowhere
Yeah.
near the peak of his power, but I really like it how this is both used to the anime's benefit. There's not this whole like, I'm wimpy and I have to get strong arc, but also it makes those moments when Ichigo does lose or does get his ass kicked feel really impactful because after all, I mean, this is again with Ichigo being a very reactive
Mhm.
character, he has this feeling of, well, I was strong then, what's going on now? I mean, take the start of the Arrancar arrival arc where he just got his ass handed to him and he's like, shit, I need to get stronger. And it's actually really satisfying. Like, and while the
Yeah.
power balancing is something that obviously I do got my gripes with,
Mhm.
to give credit where it's due, because this is the early series, I didn't really have too many problems with the power balancing because they were still establishing the rules.
Yeah. There is also something that I like about the power balancing, and that's that they constantly like. Here's the thing: a lot of people will criticize the characters. They basically talk for like ages before fighting. I am actually fine with this because it thoroughly explains the strategies, and you're never because I think it's unique. I don't. I think this is very much a like not a. This is just a different way of handling battles, and I think it
And some
works
characters,
because
like for instance, take someone like Silopodoro. I know it's way later on, but like him talking makes a lot of sense because he's a very chatty character. So naturally, he'd talk a lot in his fight.
yeah. But like we won't be seeing too many. Well, too many fights where we'll see this stuff until Soul Society. So
Yeah, and actually,
I
since
think
you brought up
that
fights, oh sorry, I'll let you go ahead before I finish up. But yeah, go ahead. My bad.
Bruh, you go.
Oh, you want me to go?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, yeah. Because you mentioned fights, this is something I want to bring up. I mean, I think it probably goes without saying with this being a shonen, and we know how action-heavy shonens are. The action is definitely a big focus of Bleach. However, I'm not gonna lie with you. One of my gripes, at least with Soul Society, actually is the action. Now, okay. To be fair. I know it's early series. They were still trying to get their grips with things. And it's simple, so I'm really not that bothered by the action being simple. The hollows themselves are about what you'd expect. You know, monster of the week type enemies. Obviously, there's more to them in that. We'll learn more about that in the Car arc, where we learn more about the hollows, how they work, and all that. But in terms of just what's here in Agent of the Shinigami, the Hollows really do just sort of fill that role of being the monsters slash enemies the heroes need to fight. And that's totally fine. I mean, I wasn't really expecting them to have
Well,
a big villain or anything this early on. However, I will say though that the fight scenes themselves are a little basic. I mean, yes, to be fair, they were still getting characters like Orihime, Chad, Uryu. They're explaining their powers. We had to have some more simple fights to get to grips with that. We also had to establish, like different types of hollows, although I do think they are a little samey with a few exceptions.
yeah, no, they're definitely samey, I can admit that.
Yeah. But I will say though, I honestly am not even that bothered by the action being basic early on, since when there is a better fight scene
Well,
or fight scene that shakes things up, I definitely remember it more. And
it is, it is also necessary for, cooking,
yeah,
being like the first arc and all,
yeah,
you probably shouldn't be less death this
yeah,
early
like
on.
and like let's be real here. They'd probably have to explain all the rules mid-fight, which wouldn't exactly be the most endearing story. And while there's a couple times where they do that, it fits a bit better. More examples to come in a minute.
Mm,
But yeah,
yeah.
the action scenes were in their infancy. But
Mhm.
like there are still some fights here that I really liked. Obviously is obvious. I really like the fight with Renji and Byakuya with their introduction. I mean, Ichigo lost that fight. Rukia gets captured, leads into the next arc. Obviously, with Grand Fisher, there was story significance, being the hollow that killed Ichigo's mother. I actually really like the atmosphere of that episode. The rainy night, the flashbacks and all that. That was actually a really good episode. My
My
favorite fight
favorite
going to the
streaker.
fight was Shrieker. A, because it's a good introduction for Chad. The fight had multiple strategies. And honestly, it just felt like a really good fight. I mean,
Yeah,
it's in like
like
episode 5, but it definitely felt like there was clear strategies. It used what we know, and the ending was pretty damn satisfying.
yeah, episode 5 is one of my favorite episodes of the arc, cause like it's very involved. And they even had the parakeet, which was interesting, because
Huh?
the parakeet
It was
was
actually the
like,
soul of a kid that Shrieker had trapped in
yeah,
a bird. Like,
yeah, that
damn.
was that was pretty dark, something this early on. I'm like, yeah, very
Also, actually, because you had mentioned earlier about characters explaining their abilities in fight scenes, they actually do that here with Shrieker's like, my leeches have a deadly
well,
habit of
um,
exploding. And like, honestly, it's so in character for him. He seems like the type of dude to just like, he seems like a big talker and like him just announcing his attack like that. It makes so much sense. And I really like it how Ichigo used that against him by shoving one of his own leeches in his mouth where he wouldn't want to detonate it. Again,
mm.
satisfying.
Okay, so I have a good segue, and that's into Orihime, because
Ah, yes, Orihime, and
Orihime,
I'm guessing by extension the
Orihime.
other sides as well.
Well, I want to talk about Orihime right now
All right.
because of the dark, because of what I mentioned about the parakeet having like dark implications.
Mm-hmm.
Orihime is the other one beforehand that has like some rough events going on because she she lost that
Lost her brother
person,
Sora.
yeah, because he and and Bleach shows you a side where it's like, you know it's like were they happy like with the decisions you made?
Yeah, like
Like
keep in mind, her brother,
after
literally, Sora took Orihime away from her parents because they were abusing her. Like, what the
mhm,
shit?
yeah, like he and like obviously has he knows because he knows so much about Orihime, like he thinks, you know, that he is like he needs, like as if he acts like she was her whole world and stuff like that. Yeah, like
I mean, she's basically the only family he had left. I mean, yeah, like as
yeah,
the older brother took away the daughter because the parents were being douchebags, like you really do understand why he'd be very protective slash attached to her. And actually, because you mentioned Sora and all the dark stuff, I actually really appreciate the very brief scene we got in Hueco Mundo before we knew it was Hueco Mundo, where we see Sora Soul trying to run away, and then just the hollows just surround him. Like, what the shit? That is disturbing. And like, keep in mind, we don't exactly know this is Hueco Mundo. They cleverly use like shadows and fog to obscure the area so that when we actually see Hueco Mundo in the Ronkar arc, it feels new. I actually really like that bit of foreshadowing, actually.
so like and the thing about Orihime is like she has all of this going on, but she also here's the thing: there is still bad things happening to Orihime because she manages to get in like a bunch of different accidents, and yet like she just is like she turns to everyone else, and then she puts up like the nice act, which by the way is this was always a thing. It doesn't matter if you're reading the manga or watching the anime. Yes, indeed, Orihime, like Orihime, still, didn't have like she like she was always being hurt by things
And she
that
puts on a
came
smile
up
to like mask
throughout.
that.
Yeah, yeah, and she doesn't want anyone to have it be their problem, which I can't
And that's really
say enough.
realistic too. Like a lot of people do that sort of thing, because they don't want to feel like they're burdening others, so they shoulder it all to themselves. Like it's actually really sad how like Orihime really
Well,
does put up with that.
actually, I would say the way this happens is impressive because Orihime's has had to endure so much pain, and believe me, I would know because I've done this before.
Mm.
I've I've I have went through a lot of pain. I still go through a lot of pain, and yet you know
My pain is still
it's
far greater than you. I'm sorry, I had to at least once. I had to at least once.
because when you have, especially when you have an anxiety, it's like it almost feels like there's no point in telling anyone because you don't know how they'll act.
Yeah, shit just
You don't.
happens.
Yeah, but I think the fact that Orihime has held it in for so long, and here's the thing: this is throughout the entire series. She holds it in, like she's still going through it, and she holds it in, which is is almost like doing the impossible because you can't really because everything that happened, like all the spectacles that went on, it's like, and she still just comes out and she's just like, yep, well, she doesn't have any because she's used to it
Mm.
because uh she's probably tired of being sad. Like a lot of people are tired of being sad.
Hey, I know that
And
feeling.
that's
I might tell jokes and be a goofy guy, but honestly, it's a pretty sad world out there, especially
like
where I'm at.
for the amount of people that say like Orihime's like, oh yeah, Orihime's just a throwaway character, I'm like, they sure
What?
did. They sure did give her a crazy amount of like subtext and development, especially early on. I mean, and also for the people that just think she's a healer, no, she isn't. She has literally done ninja-like stuff throughout the series. If you were actually paying attention.
Also, since you mentioned,
No, no,
subtext.
no, not just that. I'm not even drawing it there. She's done plenty of offensive abilities too.
Yeah, Tsubaki being one of them, or
Wait, what?
whatever the guy was. Was
Oh
it
yeah.
Tsubaki
Oh
or
yeah.
am I?
You mean? Sorry. No, 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 no. Like, okay, yeah, you did help, but like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. There was
Oh, well,
plenty of offensive attacks she used throughout the series.
true that. I mean,
The
keep in
only thing
mind,
she
like, just
didn't
because
do,
her ability is mostly like, here's the thing. A lot of the time, Orihime's abilities, like, take a lot of her abilities that can like,
fuck's
take the
sake,
ability
man.
that reflects enemy attacks back at them, or if she contains an enemy within her thing and like crushes them. Like, there is that.
Right, yeah, you have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about then.
Wait, what? Oh my god!
You have
I
no
guess I'm
idea
thinking
what
a
the
bit.
fuck
I'm
I'm
thinking of
talking about.
later series Orihime. I think.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's,
Okay. That's my
no.
bad. I was thinking of later series. My bad.
No, no, no. Like, you don't know what I'm talking about. Like, yes, okay. Like, most of the time, yes, she is a healer. Yeah, no, I'm not trying to downplay that. I absolutely think that's an
Do
impressive
you know
part of
who
her
she's like a
character.
lot? She's a lot like
Yeah, but,
Naofumi. She's like
but
Naofumi now that I think about
if you're going to ignore the fact that she has offensive attacks, we're ending the cast right here.
it. Well, since you mentioned subtext and powers, well, we might as well talk about how Rukia, seeing as, well, I mean, she is the reason Ichigo got his
Nah,
powers.
nah, 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 nah. I'm not gonna stop until you realize that she actually did do stuff
I
throughout
mean, I know.
Bleach.
I'm sorry. It's because I've recently finished Fullbring. You know me, so like, it's a little hard to turn the pendulum back in my mind. Ha
First,
ha. You see what I
it's
did
pretty
there?
easy to remember. I mean, the first time she knocked a bunch of guards out in Soul Society, she
Oh yeah, I
literally,
remember that. I remember that, but like, I was looking for examples in Agent of Shinigami, seeing as that's what we're talking about. Like, I remember, like, God, what was the one Hollow? The thing with like the tentacles that got inside of like Tatsuki's head or whatever. Like, I know she attacked it there because like that's when like she first got her power and all that.
well, yeah, but last time I checked, you were literally on the perspective of the whole series. It was just like, I had to bring it up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my bad. My brain's spiraling. Ah!
So, like, again, I'll talk about that later, right? But like, there definitely is a lot more examples than the one I said in Soul Society.
Yeah,
Although
like I
she
said, the
didn't do
Subaki, the
anything. Well, here's the thing I will say: she didn't do anything in Fake Town, but that was for obvious reasons.
yeah, I mean, like,
Um,
hey, Uryu didn't exactly do much in Fake Town either, so
barely,
you know.
a lot of characters didn't really.
Yeah, that
Um,
really was just the Ichigo arc. It really, why shouldn't it have been? Let's be real here.
okay, so Rukia, Rukia. Okay, I really like Rukia. I here's the funny thing actually. I will say.
Oh?
As great as Rukia is, and people say she is, I do think that she doesn't have as much meaningful content right away as Orihime does, actually. Since, well, she has that whole background with that, and Rukia's just kind of the Soul Reaper who, well,
Yeah, like, they
she's
really make
obviously
you
the
wait
one.
to get to know her, unlike
No,
Orihime, where
here's
we
the
get
thing.
most of it almost instantly, like episode
Well,
2, if I recall correctly.
Rukia is the one who is focused on, although I will say that the anime definitely draws more focus because for some reason, half. Here's the thing: the anime is kind of the anime is great, absolutely, but like it's they cut a lot of stuff out from the manga, like a lot of stuff, and some of it's really good. And the funny thing is this was an Orihime focused arc before the anime kind of drew it more on a Rukia centric thing. But I will say though, generally Rukia obviously is just as important because well,
I mean,
she's
she
focused
kickstarted
on
Ichigo's life as a substitute Soul Reaper, so
oh
you
yeah,
can't get
yeah,
much
yeah,
more
yeah.
important than
Well, like
that.
I'm trying to say it right. Like she is, you know, she's kind of the reason why a lot of people show up. You know, it's like the Soul Reaper. You know, and then you know it all evolves from it all evolves from there, and then you have that whole. I will say, by the way, I can't help but bring this up, but I really, really, really like the way that Kubo explained the whole holification system.
Hmm.
Like, he made it really simple and easy to understand. Like, you know, how, you know, that they send the souls to the Soul Society, and if, in the hollows, they send to that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because like it's the
Because
what
like
were
when
the
the
other
soul
ones
chain
called again?
runs out and like there's a
The
hole in their
holes.
heart and
The
then they
holes.
holify.
They have. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They have the holes. Just they have to rescue the holes, and you know, it's like they have to send the the hollows away to there, and it's like yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, no. They had no, no. Here's what it was. They had to defeat the Hollows and take the
Send
Hollows
the
to the
loose
Soul
souls
Society.
over to the
Yeah,
Soul
yeah,
Society.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I really like how that system works. Like, and I really like that it's just right away, right off the bat, you get that explanation.
And it's
Um,
fairly simple and easy to grasp too.
yeah, it's and like as a result, just watching the arc, I'm just like it's pretty engaging when I have to think about this stuff. Like I have to think about if this is even like in a real life context, would this be fine? Like you don't truly know everything about the morals of this. Like you never do know because
And
that's
keep
the
in mind,
kind
the
of thing
Soul
about
Society
Bleach.
has its share of underhanded slash shady events. So, and what I really like, actually, to very quickly change the topic for a brief moment here, is that I really like it how, in context of this arc, we don't really know a lot about the Soul Society. I mean, obviously, Ichigo has plenty of questions for Rukia and about the Soul Reapers, where they're from, the Hollows. But he rolls with it. And obviously, we get more details on, the Soul Society, the balance of souls, how the hollows work. We don't really get that till later arcs, but I really like it how they keep it semi-ambiguous and they sort of drop little details as we go.
Yeah, and like going back to Rukia, so I think like I think she's great stuff. Like I don't have an issue with her. Like I think the generally I actually liked the Father Shinigami episode, by the way.
Oh, the
Um
one with Don Kanoji, you mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually liked that because it was like here's the thing, I get it, right? Like like it's like you see them kind of almost tease a thing with Ichigo, but here's the thing though, they keep it subtle, so I'm honestly fine with that, even
I'm
though
a stage
I'm
performer!
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm not necessarily for it, but like I think the subtleness of it, I'm actually really into it, and I think the vibe is good.
Yeah, like the vibe of the
Um,
episode was pretty good. I mean, maybe that's because I've done stage performances myself, but like Don Kanoji, something kind of run with me. I'm like, yeah, this guy's a kook, but
oh,
he's a fun kook.
so I do have to mention the okay. I'm going to mention an issue I have with Orihime, unfortunately, and
Oh, okay,
that's
here we go.
in the anime exclusively. Um,
Oh.
I see. Here's the thing: the anime was noble in its intentions. I know what they were trying to do. Because they have Orihime fear Ichigo at first because, well, like they
Yeah, he's
had
a punky guy, you know, he comes off as like, you
because
know.
they tried to show him as like, kind of like, oh yeah, big, he's got that angry face, and it's like I get it because it's like you see Ichigo's face and you think that, oh yeah, he does look a bit on the rough side, but like that's kind of, his personality is obviously very
Well,
different
that, and
from
you
that.
feel like you know
Um,
she'd know better because you know they're childhood friends. I feel like you know.
well, but like she does that and then she runs off. So then like, and the thing I have with it is that I know what they were trying to do, and I actually kind of like the idea behind it, which is because Bleach is a supernatural show, they want to show off the more horror, creepy like elements of it. The problem is that I don't think it translates the Ichigo character is like, because I'm like, that's, here's the thing, the whole point was that wasn't supposed to be his personality. Like that, like you're supposed to see it as like because uh someone who's read the manga, they actually are just like immediately like he just immediately walks in, and then Orihime's lair, and then he's like, and then it just progresses right away. I think the roundabout element in the anime was actually unnecessary. But I want you to keep in mind, even though I'm criticizing the anime right now, this stuff goes over really quickly, and honestly, the anime improves a lot as it goes on. Like a lot.
Yeah.
Like the issues that I'll be mentioning will be like non-existent by the end.
Well,
Like,
okay. Since you mentioned issues, I'm gonna take the microphone for a little bit here because I actually want to voice one of my issues before I forget. And
mhm,
you probably saw this one coming a mile away. Cone. Okay, look. Not a bad character. I do think actually the whole backstory of Project Spearhead and Mod Souls is really interesting. But as far as mascot characters go, Cone is unfortunately drawing the weaker end of things. I mean, he's
yeah,
got nothing on Kiro from Cardcaptor Sakura, and while like again, I like the idea they're going for, he really doesn't do that much meaningful. Like I actually am not gonna lie
yeah,
when I say I actually think the fillers do him better.
yeah,
And
yeah.
like
They
again, I
do.
wasn't expecting that much from a mascot character anyways, but like there was a lot of intrigue with how they introduced him. Again, his connection to the Soul Society, Project Spearhead, Mod Souls. Like there is a lot of intrigue with that, but we don't really get any payoff for that in this arc. And like again, it's really saved for a filler way later down the line where Project Spearhead, more Mod Souls, like it just feels like they were checking off a tick box here. Like honestly, Bleach could have been like and again, like did Bleach really need a mascot? I don't know. Maybe I don't mean to be too hard on Cone. I don't think
Mm.
he's like a bad character, but like again, as far as mascot characters go, not one of my favorites. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, the thing about Con is that I actually do love the concept of him. I think the design for him is pretty much perfect.
Flathead Lion.
I think that also I do think the background they give him is really cool. I think the context is cool.
It's just you don't get a lot of
The
payoff until way
problem
later on with it.
the problem is that the only bits of development are like the, well, you know, I'm not saying that he needs a lot of development, but I feel like he needs a lot of enhancement moments where it's like, they
Like
have
they
a
have him
moment.
actually doing things because for so much of the
Well,
story he's just the butt of many jokes getting stepped on, like, and that joke
well,
gets old pretty
no.
fast.
I'm saying that he needs more like, he needs more meaningful content because a lot of it is kind of just
Yeah,
him being humorous. Which, like, here's the thing. Again, it's all concept with me because I'm like, honestly, I think the concept of the humor is fine, but the way they do it just feels off. Like,
Yeah, and especially when they
um,
keep repeating the same joke.
yeah,
Like,
like
there's only so many times Cone getting stepped on will be funny, if I'm being honest.
yeah. Like, I don't like that either. Like, I think the concept. I think he has he does nail the vibe, but again, it's all conceptual.
Yeah, it's
Out
like when
of
it
all
comes
of
to
the
the
Bleach
actual payoff and
characters,
execution, there is a lot to be desired.
yeah, yeah. Like, out of all the Bleach characters, he's one of my least favorites, and I think he's just okay. And for you people that are all like, yeah, but what about Karen and Yuzu? Don't don't even start with me, because I will tell you that Yuzu and Karen are the secret sauce to Bleach, and you'll understand eventually.
And like, and what's even funnier is that again, we were talking about this earlier before the stream even started about Kirito and his family and started online. Bleach, we actually have a family who's there, and like they're actual characters. They're not off screen. It's not some isekai. Oh, I have to get back to the real world to my family that we don't even know anything about. Like here, we actually get to see his family, and they actually have completely developed personalities and even story stakes with his father. I mean, I won't give too much spoilers. Using like honestly, I actually really like the Ichigo's family dynamic. Really
Yeah,
underrated too, if I'm being
yeah.
honest.
It's such a wholesome family. It really is. Like, okay, like I get it, right? The dad in the first arc is goes a little like
He tries
far
way
on
too
things,
hard to
but
be that super cool, like, yeah, let's do it, bro, kind of dad. But like, honestly, it got me to laugh more than Cone did.
I also want you to keep in mind, though, that he does get more likable as the series goes on as
And they also
well. On
explain
top of
why
it,
he behaves that way, which, like, God,
yeah,
it's
like
genius.
yeah, like his backstory in Agent of the Shinigami is like one of my favorite parts. That is
Yeah.
so good, man. Like,
Yeah.
I love he is such a like it just proves that he's a likable guy. Like, he
Yeah,
is
and like
one of the
again,
most.
him acting this way is actually a mask for his past. Then there's like the thing with again the Grand Fisher and the fact that the mother's dead Ichigo. Like it really does feel super personal, and I can admire that.
Also, like, again, man, you get like background and stuff.
Yeah,
It's like you start to realize just like how selfless he really is.
yeah, and actually, since we're talking about sides, I think this might be a good time for us to transition over to Chad and Uryu as well. Do you want to start with
Oh,
Chad or do you want to start with Uryu? Who do you want to start with?
okay. Okay, so this is one of the only times where I feel like Dad gets mm, somewhat. Here's the thing. I think here in Soul Society, he actually does have meaningful progression, because, like, I think. I think that having him be the one who, is involved with the parakeet business, I was like, perfect idea. They used him just right here.
Yeah, like, and
He's the
you
voice
really
of
get an idea of
reason.
his strong but gentle
Well,
heart.
I'm trying to say he's the voice of, like, wisdom. He's kind
Hmm.
of like, you know he'll say stuff that's like, oh
Insightful.
yeah, well, it's like he knows a lot. It's like he knows more than
He
you would
knows more.
think.
He knows more than he lets on because of how quiet he is.
Well, yeah, and you just get a lot of the impression that he's really been around for a while, like,
Yeah.
and just he's a vibe. I will say he is
He's a cool.
admittedly
He's
a
a cool
vibe.
character. What else is there to say?
He is he is one of the weaker characters for me in Bleach. I will say, to
Yeah,
be
I will admit,
honest.
I do wish they kept up more with Chad. And while he does get some nicer, smaller moments, he definitely is a character that didn't get as much screen time or as like many big
And don't
scenes.
worry, by the way, for the audience who fears that we're one of the Bleach drops off after Soul Society,
Oh
uh, you
hell
might
no, we ain't.
you might be surprised. You
Oh,
might be,
yeah, they will be surprised when I tell them
yeah,
about how I feel about that arc. Hint,
yeah,
hint, hint.
yeah,
Okay. I'll say no. Not a bad arc, not a bad arc, but I do got me gripes with it. But that's a topic for another video.
yeah. I just want to mention, since I'm mentioning like Chad, and how like I'm like, how how this has the probably the stronger side of his screen time, you could
Yeah.
say. It's
And like
you
his
know
fight with Shrieker, it's funny because like the fight with Shrieker was also like the one with the parakeet. Like
mm,
there was a really good team dynamic, Chad and Rukia
yeah,
working together,
definitely.
Ichigo coming in like that. That was a really good early series fight.
Awesome.
I really do wish that more of the early Hollow fights were as layered as that.
Oh,
And it wasn't even that
um
complex of a fight. There was clear rules, clear strategies, satisfying back and forth. Like it was a good fight. I just wish
I will
more fights in
say
this arc with the Hollows or the Hollows themselves had more unique designs and intricacies.
I do think the anime did that event justice, since like the animation and the vibe and also the visual with like the sunset. And like you picked you definitely picked the right sky settings for this, if you ask me. Like I'm
The
like,
atmosphere of Agent of the Shinigami is on point. God, that is one of the things I
yeah,
love about this arc is how it both
delicious.
feels familiar with it being set, in like a Japanese town or whatever, but then things get dark. Then the hollows start coming out and it gets all supernatural. Like it does a
Yeah.
phenomenal job at feeling like a
Um,
familiar everyday locale. But when things get dark and things get mystical, they feel really mystical. I really like that. I mean, heck, even points go to Kisuke Urahara, a seemingly nonchalant candy shop guy, is actually a contact of Rukia's and a former Soul Reaper himself. Like again, I really like the atmosphere they go for here. Again, Don Kanoji, seems like just a goofy stage performer, but he actually can see spirits. Like again, the atmosphere here is on point. The sunset. One of my favorite episodes, being the one with Grand Fisher. You know the one I'm talking about, where it's raining outside. We get the
yeah,
Ichigo and his mother backstory. Like the atmosphere in that episode is on
that part's
point.
amazing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because like, also I should mention, by the way, for that part, that tight, tight Kubo with the volume said to read the volume on a rainy night.
And
Like
the
it
music
was
fits
very
so well. The instrumental
like
version of Nothing Will Be Explained, like it fits so well for those rainy
like
portions.
just saying, like, if you're wondering about like the rain, it's like the rain's actually like fully intentional, because like he wanted you to read it
Yeah, and
in a
like, and the
way
rain
where
is
it's
also
like,
used to enhance, the depressing atmosphere. Each goes thinking like, "Oh man, my mother's dead. This is the hollow that did it." Like, it works so well.
I will say, I want to mention that even though I do prefer the manga version of this arc, the anime version does make some things that I like a lot more. Like, for example, I think for me, this is one of the most atmospheric arcs in Bleach. Like,
Oh,
probably the
absolutely.
most, possibly. Like I wouldn't say any quite had the vibe listed, because it's very, very
It's
much.
really memorable. Like I said, like later Bleach arcs really
Um,
do lean into the supernatural side of things, with them going to Hueco Mundo, them going to the Soul Society. But because this takes place in the real world, it feels both familiar and mystical. There's a really good balance here.
so, like, there's a very, like, nostalgic element, to like
Yes,
how
nostalgic.
the
That's a good way to describe it.
just because you don't know a lot of this early on. It's
Yeah,
like it feels kind of,
like you're curious, you want to know more, you want to keep going. And
yeah,
honestly, Ichigo does too. He wants answers. It puts you in the same position as him. You really feel like
yeah.
a human who's just sort of going along with this. And again, it puts you in the same position as
Oh,
Ichigo, really lining things up.
there is so much I love about this arc. Like, okay, like, here's the thing: all of those events you mentioned, I love them all, but uh, that hasn't even covered half of it, because the theater section,
Hmm.
with the really the really outgoing
Oh
guy
yeah, Don
who's like,
Kanoji. Whoa, that guy.
yeah, no, that section is really, really
Yeah, that's a fun
fun.
one. That's a
It's
fun
like,
one.
I like you'd expect it to be like kind of underwhelming because it's random events, but no, they actually have a way of making it memorable and like
And the fact that Don
for the
Kanoji
story.
like actually was useful during that fight, and you really understood why he was the
Yeah,
way he
like
was as an entertainer. Like that's
they
clever.
didn't have to do that, but they did.
And the fact
And
that he
as a
actually
result,
appears in other filler episodes, so he's not just completely forgotten about. I really admire that.
yeah.
Now, actually, we got sidetracked though. Uryu. Actually, this might surprise you a little bit. While I do really like Uryu, and I think he gets a lot better than Chad, I will admit, at first, I wasn't thinking too much of Uryu. I mean, okay, to be fair, I do have a reason for that. We didn't really get to know that much about the Quincy and their connection to the Soul Reapers and the Soul Society because we didn't learn that much of him. I do think he's got a really witty and, sort of clever personality. The voice actor of Shino from Naruto fits him really well. His Reishi bow and arrow is a really cool weapon. And when they first fight a Menos Grande or Gillian before, you know the one I'm talking about, the giant,
Yes,
black cloaky
I
mask.
know.
They use those things a lot. Like that was a pretty good fight, good
They
team up.
actually
Hmm?
they unfortunately kind of skimmed over Menos Grande in the anime, even though it is
Yeah.
still really good. It's just that it has a lot of cool stuff on it.
Yeah, and like keep in mind that was a difficult fight, and later on they're
Mhm.
fighting these guys like normally they're considered like the foot soldiers of the Hollows, and everything else has just been like ants in comparison. It's kind of crazy, actually. Okay, with the exception of Grand Fisher, who they're like, this has been a hull that's been getting away for 50 years and all that. But, he's the exception, not the
Mhm.
rule.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So,
Uryu, I really like him as a character. I do think I was more interested in Chad in this arc, but overall, as the series goes on, I definitely think Uryu gets more meaningful content than Chad. And really, I wasn't really like, I'm not even that bothered by it with him being like the last, like major inclusion.
mm,
Uh, well, like, no, actually, that's not even true because there's like Renji and Byakuya, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, I was really
well,
intrigued by Uryu. It's just because we didn't really get to know enough about him in the moment. But when you figure it out and when we learn about it, it's really interesting. And again, I really like how I actually kind of like how they did that. It keeps him mysterious, kind of keeps you guessing if he's an ally, if he's a foe. I actually quite like that. Although the rivalry side of it is short lived, it's still intriguing.
well, I have a different perspective on Uryu on Agent of the Shinigami.
Ooh,
Um, Very different, actually.
all
Uh,
right, let's hear
okay,
it.
so the reasons I love him in this arc are very different for the reasons I love him in the other arcs, of course. And
Hmm.
that's that I think that Uryu having the rivalry set up here is very memorable. To be honest, I think it's more memorable than when Chad was there, even though I think that Chad has the better section. Do not get me wrong. Like, but like Uryu. The thing about Uryu is that they set up the rivalry pretty well, I think, and the here's the thing. I find him funny in this arc, like hilarious. Like
Oh yeah,
that
yeah. The
moment.
way he's just so like no nonsense, and Ichigo's like, "What are you doing?" Like they play off each other really well.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have to mention the moment, like for the billionth time. The moment where he's in the classroom and they're all like, "Okay, do you want to go outside?" And I'm like, "Why should I go outside with you?" Well, and then one of Ichigo's friends goes up to him and says, "Well, you see, there's like sandwiches and stuff," and then he's like, "Okay."
he's like sandwiches. Let's go.
He's like, "Okay." Funny.
Typical
And
gluttony.
and the funny thing is, they even do the thing, with the shades and the glassy
Yeah, where
during
like
that
it's like
moment.
chink, like it glows up. Like he will like he's like sandwiches. Did you say sandwiches? Like when a dog sees a bone, it
I
perks
hope
up.
it will. Yeah, no, I think the way they cooked their you here, like, I wouldn't really change it personally.
Yeah, same. I wouldn't change it either. Like literally, the only reason why I say I prefer Chad is because I mean, come on, it's Chad. He's a Chad. Obvious is obvious. But like
I
what
mean,
we
he
have with
has
Uryu here, he just obviously doesn't reach the same heights later. Still though, really, really strong first impression.
like I will give Chad that he's a vibe. I don't really. It's, I think it's a screen time thing. I don't really
Yeah,
think he's that prevalent.
I can
Yeah,
see
so he's
that.
so funny.
That's fair.
I do love what's layer with him, obviously, because especially just here's the thing about Chad. I think his concept far surpasses his execution because I'm like,
Agreed.
just the very idea of having someone just having a guy like that just be there going, oh yes, well you see, I I understand how you feel, but you know, I have to go on this long-winded speech about about how this matters. I'm like, it's really funny. I do really like this there for Shad.
Yeah.
Um, and don't get me wrong. Even though I do think that he has less screen time, I think that the balancing is still really good.
Yeah. Us
Between
in
the
general,
two
this is a really
characters.
good arc in terms of overall balance.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think it's because they keep it they really like to keep it fresh. Like they'll
Hmm.
have the classroom and then they'll have an event happen. And here's the thing. So many people boil this down to just boil this arc down to Monster of the Week, and I'm like, I
Yeah,
just
I see
can't
people kind of comparing it to
really.
Sailor Moon where they say it's really formulaic. And
I'm
okay,
sorry,
to give
but
some credit, it is formulaic, but like comparing it to Sailor
look,
Moon is just insulting because like I was
I'm
enjoying.
sorry, but I just can't agree. I just can't agree. I don't even think it's formulaic. I think the way that Bleach did it was very refreshing, actually. I don't think. I think that every single time it was always justified by a significant plot reason.
Hmm.
Because, they always had them happen at the exact right times. They were all contextualized. They
Hmm.
all had some, amount of even the Menos Grande that even had some foreshadowing with
Yeah, there was payoff.
a bunch of
Payoff.
progression. Yeah, and I just I just I think boiling this down to just your average monster of the week doesn't tend to account for just how refreshing it is that this isn't just the same fight over and
Yeah.
over.
Yeah,
It's not
like the
just.
Sailor Moon fights, which are literally that.
Yeah,
Like to be honest, I think
yeah.
the Hollows are actually some of the better quotation marks monster of the week type enemies. I get their designs can sort of feel that way, and the fights are a little bit on the shorter side, but honestly, like they're really fucking cool. One, they're actually terrifying. Like they really give these Hollows this feeling of these dark, foreboding creatures. Like they did a really good job with them.
And even when differentiating you know these hollows at all does take a lot of effort. You have to actually think about the proportions,
Yeah, and
how
the
to
fact that all of them need to have a mask and a hole in them. So obviously there's going to
yeah.
be some samey design elements. And the fact that they got as much as they did, and obviously more when the Iran cars come around, it really does show that this is a really interesting idea. And how the like Hollows, like Hueco Mundo, is basically a dark, twisted, more wild version of Soul Study. Like there's so much intrigue. And honestly, the Hollows are actually really intimidating. Like they really give them the feeling of these like truly hungry, inhuman beasts. It's so cool. Like I would be terrified if one of these things caught me in a dark alleyway. Like that is good stuff for a monster of the week. If you get my drift.
You know, I know, I know you've not seen it, but I want to just mention really quick offhand that the Bleach live action movie covers this arc and
Oh,
this arc only, and it is actually good. No caveats, it's good. Flat out.
damn.
It's actually a good adaptation of this arc that works well. The reason why is not because, oh yeah, it's like a faithful recreation of the arc or anything. No, 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 nothing like that. It's actually because on its own merits, it goes hard. Like what they did was because Bleach, has the whole martial arts element,
Hmm.
they decided that they'd focus on that element, and what they decided to do was just make that part way better to the point where it's worth actually watching over
Yeah.
the other versions of the arc. I just thought I'd mention for the people curious, go and watch that movie too. It's actually really good. I'm not kidding.
Alrighty.
It's a good action movie, I will say. And
Ah.
because the reason why I mentioned that is because I was thinking about the Monster of the Week, kind of
Hmm.
hollow thing, and I was going like, yeah, well, the thing is when the arc is focused on those, yeah, I mean, I will admit, if I was generally watching it and it was just a random thing that happened, I wouldn't care because that kind of showed me how it would be if I didn't. But that's the thing. That already proves that, you know what? These actually had a progression to it. Like,
Yeah,
these
I
weren't
mean,
just
the
spammed
hollows at the start of
throughout.
the series are very different from how they are at the end of the series. So the progression is naturally there.
Yeah, yeah. These weren't just like spammed like constantly. They actually did have. I'm not saying they had much context. I'm not saying they had like a substantial amount of context,
And they
but
really shouldn't have this early on, to be fair.
well, yeah, but I'm saying they're willing to do what shows like Sailor Moon didn't, and that's
Evolution.
actually incorporate them into the plot naturally
Yeah, evolution. Well,
because
I
it's
think that
seamless.
just about takes us to the ending or the latter segments of the arc
Well,
where
basically every portion from when Renji appears up until the
the
last
training with
four.
Ichigo getting his Zanpakuto, his
Yeah, the
real one
last
anyway.
four episodes because that's all the I think it's the early O2 stuff. Okay, anyway.
Yeah.
Um
Honestly, I want to say
so
right now, I actually really like Renji. I obviously can't like massively go into him here because we'll get to know more about him in Soul Society, but his introduction is really cool. Him and Byakuya taking Rukia back to the Soul Society, Ichigo trying to stop them and getting his ass kicked for the record. Like there is some
okay,
really good build up here, and it segues
and
into
that
the
does.
next arc really well because there's clear stakes and there's a new objectives set. And it's really funny because like for a lot of Bleach didn't really have a big villain at the start. I mean, the Hollows, like I said, sort of were kind of like monsters of the week. And while Renji and Byakuya were definitely in an antagonistic position here, I wouldn't exactly call either of them evil or villains because what they were doing was, well, what the Soul Society had ordered of them. And it definitely raises the stakes because I mean, like obviously the Hollows, they're fighting Soul Reapers is going to be very different to fighting Hollows because they have their own Zanpakutos, their own abilities, and what have you. So it's really good build up, and I'm happy to say that in the case of both Renji and Byakuya, it pays off. As to the details, that'll be for another video. And also, it feels really emotional too, as like Rukia tries to tell Ichigo he doesn't have to come after her, but knowing Ichigo, he's gonna do it anyways.
Right.
Yeah, and like it
Yeah.
really pulls on the heartstrings too, because Ichigo, like, he felt powerless. I mean, Byakuya practically
Uh,
one-shotted him. He loses his powers. Rukia
Clint,
leaves him to go with them, and like now Ichigo just has this feeling of I'm back to square one. And then they erase all the memories so no one
Clint,
even remembers Rukia. Like, you really see how personally he takes it.
Clint, I think you're going on unlimited mode again.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Whoops.
I'm gonna start by talking about how fucking good episode 18 is. Episode 18 is a masterpiece. Because like the conflict. It's the conflict. Like Renji, like it's because Ichigo is trying so hard to get a person who knows that Rukia doesn't even care. Like Rukia's ready to go back to the Soul Society. She doesn't care, but Ichigo is trying everything
Yeah,
to
he takes
protect
it
her.
so personally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's just like, and then it's just like he waits it out, and then I'm like, I'm gonna train.
Yeah, and like, and
I'm
honestly,
gonna train.
like again, like I actually really like how it pays off with Kisuke or Hara, the candy shop guy, actually helping Ichigo get back his Soul Reaper powers, or well, his real Soul Reaper powers, because he was sort of mooching off of Rukia's. But yeah, like, and honestly, I am so glad with how they did Renji. Renji honestly might be one of my favorite
Yeah,
Soul Reapers, not only because I think he's a
yeah.
really good character, and I'm also really glad he became part of the main cast going forward. But the way they introduced him was just right alongside Byakuya. Like, oh my god, this is such a
I
good
will
character
say,
introduction.
Renji is annoyingly well written. Like, just stop being well written, please.
And like, honestly,
Like,
how I said, Uryu and Ichigo's dynamic is really entertaining. Ichigo and Renji's dynamic is quite possibly one of the most entertaining in the whole
oh yeah,
series. Like,
oh
the
yeah.
way these two guys are just both big hotheads, I love it when they bicker with each other.
Well,
It's just
I'm
great.
I'm gonna go off on that when we get to Soul Society. But the but like just generally, I think this ending portion of Agent of the Shinigami is my favorite for probably obvious reasons. I mean, I do think episode 19, I think, was a bit slow since it was it was kind of
It's trying
just
to
like,
wrap up from the, Ichigo getting his ass handed to him,
yeah,
so.
well, we kind of just had a waterfall scene. Although to be fair, that waterfall scene was very memorable. Like I definitely, well,
And it was very
obviously,
effective too because it really painted the picture of just how lonely Ichigo was without Rukia.
yeah, and you even get to see like some subtle developments for Orihime as
Hmm.
usual. Seriously underrated character.
Yeah, it
Please
really
stop
makes the moment
underrating
feel
her.
very hollow. But I
Even though
agree.
it's funny, like even in the anime where Orihime is cut down, I'm like Orihime still has a lot to offer to the plot. I'm
She's
like,
still a really well
like
written character, and that's saying
here's
a
the thing.
lot.
Rukia gets more screen time, sure, but Orihime is just as meaningful, really, when she
Yeah,
is there. So,
agreed.
like, I don't see the issue personally. I think that she has fulfilled her role in the story perfectly. I'm not saying she's a perfect character. Obviously, contradictory statements right there. I'm just saying, right? Like, for the most part, for the most part, uh, like, I'm not having an issue. I think in one arc specifically, I think you know the one.
I have a
That's where I
feeling.
do
I
have a
have a
bit of an
feeling.
although they do make it purposeful at least, so it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Uh, I just wish I could have had more messaging in there. But anyway, so as for Agent of the Shinigami, like I like the way it ends also with
Yeah, it
the
really is
raid.
it's a very effective dangle that leads into Soul Society. And like I said,
Oh
it's great build up. It isn't what I would exactly call like ending in quotation marks, since like I said, it really does want to
yeah,
lead
yeah, yeah.
into Soul
Obviously.
Society. But this is a really good lead
Well,
in. Like
here's the
I
thing.
wanted to see more.
I will say if it did, I'm not saying it should have, but I'm saying if it did end there, I mean, I would have had questions, sure, but I will say that it does still feel fulfilling to me because it's like
Absolutely it
you
does.
have you have the door to the world, right? And I will say, by the way, see that the location within the door because it's kind of like one of those ambiguous entry plots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
The Senkai
what's
Moon.
behind the door? And then you know how you have that big part that leads into Soul Society that's like filled with like flesh and all that.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like,
the
that's really
precipice
cool.
world.
Yeah, that is so cool. Like I just can't even honestly I think people take for granted like how like detailed that location really is. Like
I literally
the
they
part
use
that's
it both
actually in
in
there.
Car and the invading army arc. Like it literally is
Yeah,
the bridge between the two worlds when you get down to
here
it.
here wasn't it used when Aizen was trying to capture Orihime, I think.
Yes, it was literally in
Yeah.
both Car, multiple segments of Car, as well as the invading army. Like the precipice world, it has so much meaning with again it literally being the bridge between the two worlds.
Yeah.
And then there's that cleaner that's just trying to like eat everything. Like that place is dangerous.
So like I know that you might find the slice of life scenes like repetitive, but for me, they're actually some of my favorite part. And
Honestly,
like, I get
if
it.
you want my honest opinion, I didn't mind these. They reminded me a lot of Cardcaptor Sakura's,
Yeah,
where they felt both meaningful and entertaining. Which is again,
yeah,
I know I'm an action sucker, but honestly, when I see good slice of life, I'll say it. And honestly, I was pretty intrigued by these, and it really helps that I really liked the characters and their dynamic.
Here, here, Quint. Andrew asked you a question.
Oh, hi, have I checked the trailer for God of War Valhalla? Yes, I have. In fact, you actually sent it to me. He actually sent. It's so funny that we're mentioning this. God, am I gonna have to stream more God of War? Oh boy,
Oh,
that's gonna be
oh
interesting.
yeah. Wait a minute. Isn't that free DLC?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
like,
literally. Oh my God, and after I just finished the super bosses too. Oh God, I might
honestly,
be
like,
jumping back into that sooner than I think.
I will say by the way, like, I saw that during like the Game Awards, which by the way, that was trash. That was the one cool thing to come out of that was that you get a free God of War DLC.
And it's like a
That's really good.
roguelike. It's a roguelike area. And I really like roguelikes. Those are some really fun
Hmm,
games.
right. Um.
We were talking about the ending to Agent of
Yeah.
Shinigami.
So the okay. So throughout, like, honestly, I just there isn't. I'll be honest with you, Quinn. I can understand not being into this arc, but for me, I thought all not every part. There is occasional parts that underwhelm me. Episode, I think it was actually I can't remember. I think it might have been episode 15 or 16. I thought was a bit lame. I think it might have been 16 actually, where it was like they didn't do much, and then they kind of had like them tease relationships and stuff, where it was just like, yeah, this isn't really doing anything. I'll be honest. It's just
Mhm.
kind of meandering for time while we wait on.
Yeah.
That was the only part though that I thought was pointless.
Yeah, and honestly,
Every
like
other part I thought
keep
was
in mind, I'm gonna give my score on the overall. Like, I can easily say this is an 8 out of 10 arc. A really, if not one of the better first arcs I've seen for a big series. I mean, I don't usually praise arcs like first arcs to big series, whether it be like Duelist Kingdom and Yu-Gi-Oh, where it was really long, Dark
oh
Kingdom and
yeah,
Sailor Moon, because oh God no.
oh no,
Daybreak from Fairy Tail because it was really short.
yeah, it was
Like
just
8 out of 10 is a really good score for like the
yeah.
first arc, and I'm really happy with it being this way.
Yeah. Like, honestly, like, I just think this is a very consistent arc, and honestly, I don't think there's many mistakes being made here. Like, I don't think there's
Yeah,
any
like
part where
honestly, there
like
was pretty understandable
the
reasons for everything being the way they were. Honestly, I wouldn't change a thing about this arc. I mean, even though I give it an 8 out of 10, I honestly don't really see a reason for it to be a 10 out of 10. But I'm okay with that
yeah.
because what we got here
I
is just
mean,
really good setup, which is what the arc was
um,
trying to do. So it absolutely succeeded in that regard.
like I will admit that at times it can feel a bit clunky. Like, you can always try and cherry pick for things, but for me, I think
Yeah,
that
kind of like
events
how I do
do
with the
great.
action, for instance.
Yeah. It's like, but here's the thing. Sometimes cherry picking, I think, misses the forest for the trees
Uh
because,
huh.
like, I think that you can easily be great and have caveats.
Same.
That's not something that, like, it doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to be 100% clean to be fantastic. I mean, you
Yeah,
just
even some of
have
my favorite series have caveats. Even series I give a 10 out of 10, I'll still have gripes with. That's just how
because
it
like
goes.
if you make here's the thing, if you make the arc have an impression and like a few flaws, you can still easily land that 8, man. You
Yeah.
can
Hell, you
you
can still land
you
a
can do it.
10 in my book. Although, to be fair, I'm a bit more lenient than most, but that kind of goes
Well,
without saying.
yeah. Yeah, but like, if you have a 10, that isn't necessarily saying you mean it's perfect in the first place.
Yeah, it just
I don't
means that I
I
think
wouldn't
it's
say.
like really, really good.
Yeah, yeah. It's just something that speaks to you on a personal level or something
Yep.
like that. Something to that effect. It can have multiple different contexts. It
Yep.
really just depends on how you feel at that specific moment. Feelings do matter and do factor into the equation. Not not necessarily like not necessarily nostalgia, but
Personal enjoyment.
feelings. Yeah, personal enjoyment should still factor into a critical standpoint, in
Yeah.
my opinion, because there's always going to be some level. Because here's the thing: we are humans. Generally, we are going to disagree on stuff.
Yeah,
We
we're
have
all we're gonna base our opinions based off of our personal experience, so it should play into our critiques.
yeah, yeah. Because here's the thing: there can only be so many media that truly stands out as unique,
Yep,
because you're always going to be done again at some point.
true.
And for me, arcs like this arc just happen to be very, you know, just happen to do the right amount at the right time, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's
Where
really
they
memorable
just,
too. Like I said, the atmosphere, God, like the atmosphere of the song. I
yeah,
really cannot emphasize enough how much I love the familiar yet mystical atmosphere of this. It's almost too good, surprisingly. Like nothing else is quite like it in Bleach.
yeah. And I should mention, while I have read the manga and do agree with the criticisms, some of them, of the way the anime does this arc, I will say though, some people are going too far. They're exaggerating. I think that this being the way it was, I think that it does enough. Yes, it was brief. I don't like that they shifted the focus, but it can still be great on its own merits. And you
Yeah.
want to know what? It was great on its own merits. So I, I, I can't be mad when the overall package is still fantastic, which it is.
Yeah, it's
It's still a
massively
great arc
enjoyable.
either way. So like, and here's the thing: I don't think the manga version is perfect either, because here's the thing: the manga version, while I do prefer it, actually does have a bit of bloat to it that the anime doesn't have, because it
Oh.
does, in the structure of the story, it actually drags a bit. I would
Mhm.
have cut it like 20 chapters down personally,
All right.
whereas this is kind of more on the briefer end, and I would have liked it to like I would have still liked that focus to still be on Orihime,
Hmm.
but at the same time, a great arc's a great arc. I can't say that it's that big of a deal to me, like
Yeah.
anything that happened, because I'm like, they still come across in the anime serviceably. They're
Hmm.
still fine enough. I mean, as an adaptation, yes, it could have been better, but you know what? It could have been a hell of a lot worse. And you know what? Orihime's issues are nothing, nothing compared to what Sakura Haruno went through in Shippuden. I am mad, mad online about how Sakura got mistreated by Period. Period, stop it! Just stop butchering one of my favorite characters in Naruto! Yeah!
I love it. I love it. Passion. Let your passion show. I don't know.
Like,
I
at
think that was
least
like Mike Guy who
Orihime
said that, I think.
at least Orihime, she still comes through. She still has her messaging in there. She still has. Actually, you want to know what's an improvement in the anime?
What?
The way she says the line, um, does it reflect the Earth the same way it does? Like, the sky. That part is great. That part is great. I can't remember the exact line, but you know,
I
it
think
was
I
a
know
great
the
line.
moment you're talking about, I think.
It's an amazing line, and honestly, the anime really did a good job there. Like,
And honestly, like I think Orihime actually has some pretty funny moments. I mean, it's
oh
saying a
yeah,
lot when the girl is funnier than the lion mascot who tries to be comic relief. So
yeah, yeah,
make of
yeah.
that
Like,
what you
yeah,
will.
like the anime gags go all out for Orihime, and you know what? I'm here for it. Like, I really like the anime gags. You
Literally,
know
the
that
image of
one?
Orihime spinning the leek, the green onion, is a
Yeah,
partial inspiration to Hatsune Miku. Like that's how you know. That's how you know.
yeah. There was actually an anime original one that I really liked. I can't remember which one. I think it was the. It wasn't the Sprout one. I don't think it was like the one of. And no, it wasn't the one of her fainting either. It was the. Goodness, there was definitely one. I assure you.
We'll
Uh,
remember it another day, but we should probably wrap up this video now
but it
because
was
we've
like
crossed the hour mark.
no,
So
no,
let's
no,
make
no.
our closing
Please
statements.
understand.
Hmm.
Please understand that
Yeah.
anime original one was like my favorite one.
We'll have to look through the footage
On
and
a
find
lot.
it. I gotta remember these.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like if you pull it up, I'll point out the exact one to you that is the one that's anime original, and that is my favorite of them. And that's saying something, by the way, because the other ones are really, really amazing too.
Orihime in general just has a lot of really good gags. Like,
The gags,
honestly,
yeah,
she's one of the most entertaining characters dialogue wise, if you ask me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like she gets a ridiculous amount of gags early on, and well, some people may be annoyed by that. I'm fine with it. Like, so what? Like, what? Why? Why can't you guys just let characters have fun? Like, why can't you just accept that?
I know,
Why?
right?
Why? Why can't you just
Why can't
let
we
a
enjoy this
character?
thing that's meant to be entertainment?
Well, well. What I'm saying is, I don't know why people are so against outgoing personalities. Like, I don't know why it's always
I have
that,
no clue either. Like, this is something
talkative.
that's always baffled me. And I have a fairly outgoing personality
And
myself. I mean,
also,
it's not really much of a secret, but still.
and here's the thing that I've noticed. I've noticed a lot of female characters in anime get like scrutinized for this and back, and I almost never agree with it.
It, like,
Never.
it never cuts the other way, where like there's a strong female character and people just never complain, even if they have absurd amounts of plot armor, are insanely
Mhm.
unlikable, or God forbid, they're just badly written. Actually, fuck you, Asuka Langley Soryu. You're
Thinking
literally
about
the
it, sir.
worst character of Evangelion. Fuck that shit.
Yep. Yep. I agree with you.
And like people are
But
gonna like her anyways because of course they would. Anyways, all right.
you,
Any closing
you know,
thoughts before we conclude the stream?
I feel like I've already said my closing thoughts.
All right. Well then, this was fun. That was Agent of the Shinigami. 8 out of 10 overall from
Eight
me.
out of
And
10. Yeah.
yeah. And